Before the Greeks ever wrote laws, before they built marble temples or crowned kings, they understood something modern society has forgotten: respect is not demanded by noise. It is not begged for through approval. It is not forced by aggression. Respect, to the ancient Greek mind, was something far older, quieter, and more dangerous. It was presence. And presence, more often than not, belonged to those who spoke the least. If you had walked into the council halls of ancient Athens, you would not have been impressed by the loudest man in the room. He was rarely the one others feared. The Greeks had a word for loud, uncontrolled speech, akrasia, and it was not a compliment. The man who commanded the room was the one who waited, who listened, who allowed silence to stretch long enough for others to feel uncomfortable filling it. That man, whether he spoke or not, carried weight. This is where the introvert begins. Modern culture has lied to introverts. It has told them that leadership requires charisma, that respect requires volume, that power must be visible to be real. But Greek mythology tells a different story. In its pantheon of gods, the most respected figures are rarely the most talkative. They are the most restrained. They are feared not because they announce themselves, but because when they finally act, the world changes. Consider Hades. He ruled a realm every soul would eventually enter, yet he did not roam the earth demanding worship. He did not boast. He did not chase attention. He stayed invisible, underground, silent. And yet no god was more certain. Zeus could be challenged. Poseidon could be defied. Ares could be mocked. But Hades, no one escaped him. The Greeks respected him precisely because he did not need to prove himself. His authority was inevitable. That is introverted power in its purest form. To command respect as an introvert is not to become louder. It is to become heavier. Your words must feel expensive. Your presence must feel deliberate. The Greeks understood that speech, like currency, loses value when overused. This is why Athena, goddess of wisdom, was never impulsive with her voice. She spoke only when the outcome mattered. When she advised heroes, she did not overwhelm them with speeches. She gave them clarity, direction, one sentence that cut through chaos like a blade. And that is why kings listened to her. Athena represents the introvert who commands respect through competence and restraint. She did not seduce with charm like Aphrodite. She did not intimidate with brute force like Ares. She outthought. She outweighted. She allowed others to exhaust themselves while she conserved energy. Respect followed her because people trusted her judgment. In Greek society, wisdom was louder than confidence. A man who spoke too quickly was suspected of thinking too slowly. This is where most introverts misunderstand respect. They believe respect comes from asserting themselves more often, from speaking up even when they have nothing meaningful to add. But the Greeks would see this as weakness. In the Odyssey, Odysseus survives not because he is the strongest or loudest hero, but because he knows when to stay silent. When captured by the Cyclops, he does not reveal his name. He becomes nobody, and that silence saves his life. The moment he breaks it, when pride forces him to shout his name across the sea, Poseidon curses him. The lesson is ancient and brutal: speech reveals you. Silence protects you. As an introvert, your silence is not emptiness. It is a signal. People instinctively pay more attention to those who do not rush to be understood. When you speak rarely, others listen carefully, because they sense that what you say is filtered. Consider Apollo, god of prophecy. His words were not frequent. But when they came, entire cities changed course. Wars were started or stopped based on a single oracle. Apollo did not argue. He did not explain himself endlessly. His statements stood on their own. That is authority. Authority, to the Greek mind, was not loud leadership. It was certainty. Zeus himself, king of the gods, did not rule because he shouted commands all day. He ruled because when he finally spoke, it was final. Thunder followed his decisions, not his speeches. He allowed other gods to argue, to scheme, to complain. And then, when enough was enough, one sentence ended the discussion. Introverts often fear leadership because they confuse leadership with constant interaction. Greek mythology shows the opposite. The most powerful figure is the one who speaks last. To command respect, you must master timing. Timing is the introvert's advantage. While others react emotionally, you observe. While others rush to be seen, you remain still. Stillness unnerves people. The Greeks associated stillness with control. A man who could sit quietly while others argued was assumed to be dangerous, because he was not ruled by impulse. He was ruled by intention. Think of Hestia, goddess of the hearth. She was rarely depicted in dramatic myths. No wars, no scandals, no loud stories, yet every home depended on her. Every sacrifice began with her flame. She did not demand respect. She was respected because everything fell apart without her. This is another introvert truth. Indispensability commands more respect than visibility. When your absence is felt more than your presence, you have power. Modern workplaces, social spaces, even families often reward extroverted behavior. But respect is not the same as attention. Greek mythology separates the two clearly. Hermes had attention. He was clever, fast-talking, everywhere at once. But no one mistook him for Zeus. No one confused movement with authority. The Greeks admired Hermes, but they obeyed Zeus. Respect follows gravity, not speed. As an introvert, your task is not to compete with extroverts on their terrain. It is to cultivate gravity. Gravity comes from consistency, from emotional control, from predictability in values and unpredictability in action. When people cannot read you easily, they project depth onto you. This is not manipulation, it is human psychology recognized thousands of years ago. Mystery was revered in Greek culture. The Eleusinian mysteries were sacred precisely because they were not explained to everyone. Knowledge kept quiet became power. Silence also protects you from overexposure. In mythology, those who revealed too much were punished. Cassandra spoke constantly, truth spilling from her mouth, yet no one respected her words. Why? Because she spoke without restraint. The tragedy of Cassandra is not that she was unheard, but that her speech carried no authority. People had grown used to her voice. Familiarity breeds disregard. The introvert must avoid Cassandra's fate by choosing when to speak and when to withhold. Respect grows when people associate your words with outcomes. If every time you speak something meaningful happens, people will wait for your voice. Athena never wasted language. Neither should you. Speak when you can add structure, not noise. Speak when you have insight, not emotion. The Greeks believed emotion clouded judgment. A man ruled by emotion was ruled by others. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming composed. Composure was considered divine. The gods did not panic. They punished panic. When mortals begged too loudly, they were ignored. When they approached with humility and clarity, they were answered. Introverts naturally excel at composure because they process internally. This internal processing, when trusted, becomes a weapon. You command respect by controlling your reactions. Ares was feared but not respected because he was reactive. He raged, he rushed, he lost. Athena was respected because she calculated. In modern terms, emotional restraint signals maturity. Maturity signals authority. Authority commands respect. Your body language matters more than your words. The Greeks sculpted their gods standing tall, relaxed, unhurried. Tension was weakness. Rushed movements meant fear. An introvert who moves slowly, deliberately, who does not fidget or overexplain, appears confident even in silence. Silence paired with calm posture unsettles people more than aggression ever could. You must also accept that respect is not affection. The Greeks did not love Zeus. They respected him. Many introverts seek to be liked because they fear being ignored. But respect often arrives before warmth. If you chase approval, you signal insecurity. If you stand firm in your boundaries, people adjust themselves around you. Boundaries are sacred in Greek mythology. When mortals crossed them, consequences followed. Artemis punished intrusion. Athena punished arrogance. Hades punished theft from his realm. None of them explained their boundaries repeatedly. They enforced them once. Respect followed enforcement, not explanation. As an introvert, learn this lesson deeply. You do not owe constant access to yourself. Scarcity increases value. When people know they cannot always reach you, they value the moments they can. When you are always available, always responding, always explaining, you reduce your perceived worth. The Greeks respected what was difficult to access. Temples were placed on hills, not streets. Your presence should feel intentional, not habitual. When you enter a room, do not announce yourself. Let others notice the change in energy. This is not arrogance, it is self-possession. Self-possession was considered godlike. Mortals who lacked it were toys of fate. In Greek tragedy, characters fall not because they lack strength, but because they lack restraint. Hubris, excessive expression, excessive pride, excessive action, invites downfall. Introverts, by nature, are less prone to hubris. This is an advantage if used correctly. Your restraint must be paired with self-respect. Silence without self-respect becomes invisibility. Silence with self-respect becomes authority. Respect, in the Greek world, was never separated from self-mastery. A person who could not rule themselves was unfit to rule anything else. This is why the most terrifying figures in mythology were not the loud conquerors, but the calm ones. The ones who did not chase validation. The ones who were unmoved by praise or insult. For the introvert, this principle is not a disadvantage, it is alignment. Look closely at Achilles. He was unmatched in battle, yet his greatest weakness was not his heel, it was his temperament. When insulted, he withdrew completely. When enraged, he slaughtered without restraint. Achilles was powerful, but he was not respected in the deepest sense. He was feared, admired, and ultimately tragic. Contrast him with Odysseus. Odysseus survived not through rage, but through control. He listened more than he spoke. He observed before acting. He commanded respect not because he was invincible, but because he was adaptable. Greek mythology makes this distinction clear: strength without discipline is unstable. Discipline without noise is dominant. For introverts, discipline is your natural ground. You already live internally. You already reflect. The mistake many introverts make is hiding that inner world instead of sharpening it. The Greeks believed that the mind was a battlefield. Whoever controlled it controlled fate. This is why philosophers were revered. Socrates did not command armies. He asked questions. Yet Athens feared him enough to kill him. Think about that. A quiet man asking questions was considered more dangerous than warriors with swords. Respect does not always look like applause. Sometimes it looks like discomfort. Socrates understood the power of restraint. He did not shout his wisdom. He drew it out of others, exposing their ignorance. This is a profound introverted technique. When you speak less and ask better questions, you reverse the power dynamic. The person talking reveals themselves. You remain opaque. Opaqueness creates authority. The Greeks associated transparency with vulnerability. Gods were hidden. Oracles were cryptic. Clear answers were rare. Ambiguity kept mortals cautious. In modern life, introverts are often pressured to open up, to explain themselves constantly. But explanation dilutes authority. The more you explain, the more you invite debate. Greek gods did not debate mortals. They declared. And often, they did not even do that. Their actions spoke. If you want respect, let your consistency speak before your mouth does. Consistency was sacred in Greek ethics. A man whose values shifted with the crowd was considered weak. An introvert who knows their principles and lives by them quietly becomes predictable in the best way. People trust what is predictable. Trust is the foundation of respect. You do not need to announce your principles. You enforce them through behavior. Consider Artemis again. She did not argue for her independence. She lived it. She punished violation without speeches. Over time, everyone understood her boundaries. This is how introverts must treat their time, energy, and attention. Do not complain about being disrespected. Adjust your access. Adjust your responses. Respect follows adjustment. Another misunderstood concept is charisma. Modern culture treats charisma as performance. The Greeks saw charisma as divine favor, something felt, not performed. Charisma came from alignment between inner state and outer behavior. Introverts often have deep inner worlds. When those worlds are stable, they radiate calm. Calm is magnetic. People lean toward it instinctively, especially in chaos. In war councils, the calm general was obeyed. Panic spread from the anxious leader. Greek generals understood this. Xenophon wrote about leaders who spoke briefly before battle, not to motivate emotionally, but to steady the mind. Few words, clear intention, silence afterward. The soldiers respected the leader who did not need to hype them up. That leader seemed certain of victory. Certainty does not require loudness. It requires clarity. Introverts excel at clarity when they stop doubting themselves. Doubt leaks through behavior. It shows in rushed speech, in unnecessary smiles, in over-agreeing. The Greeks saw excessive friendliness as suspicion-worthy. Why is he trying so hard? A god did not try. A god was. This does not mean becoming distant or cold. It means becoming grounded. Grounded people do not chase reactions. They create them. When you enter a conversation as an introvert, your goal is not to fill silence. Let silence do the work. Silence forces others to reveal priorities, insecurities, intentions. This was well understood in Greek courts. The man who waited won. Respect also comes from endurance. Introverts endure discomfort better than extroverts because they are accustomed to internal tension. In mythology, endurance was heroic. Heracles did not earn respect by complaining. He endured labors silently. He suffered, completed the task, moved on. No speeches. The Greeks admired this stoic perseverance. The man who could endure without broadcasting his pain was considered noble. In your life, this translates to emotional economy. Do not spend emotional energy publicly. Process privately. Reveal selectively. People respect those who are not emotionally scattered. Emotional scattering makes you predictable and exploitable. Emotional containment makes you formidable. The Greeks also understood reputation as slow accumulation. Reputation was built over years, sometimes generations. Introverts often want immediate recognition to compensate for being quiet. Resist this urge. Respect compounds. Every time you act with restraint, every time you choose principle over impulse, you add weight to your presence. People may not comment immediately, but they notice. Hades again becomes a perfect model. He did not interfere constantly. But when he did, it was irreversible. Respect grows when people associate you with finality. Do not threaten. Do not hint. Act decisively when action is required. Decisive silence is more frightening than loud warnings. Introverts must also learn the difference between humility and self-erasure. The Greeks valued humility toward the gods, not toward other mortals. Lowering yourself excessively invites contempt, not respect. You can be polite without being small. You can be quiet without being invisible. Stand fully in your space. The Greeks believed every being had a rightful place in the cosmos. Claim yours. Your voice, when you use it, must carry structure. Rambling speech signals unpreparedness. Prepared speech signals authority. Before speaking, know your point. Deliver it. Stop. Do not chase agreement. Zeus did not ask, "Do you understand?" He assumed understanding would follow. This discipline is uncomfortable at first. Silence feels risky in a culture addicted to noise. But risk is where respect lies. Greek heroes faced monsters alone. Introverts face social pressure alone. Both require courage. Courage, to the Greeks, was not recklessness. It was measured action in the face of fear. As an introvert, you are not meant to dominate every space. You are meant to dominate the moments that matter. When you speak less, those moments stand out. People remember them. Memory is the seed of reputation. Reputation becomes respect. And understand this deeply, respect is not universal. Some will never respect you no matter how loud or quiet you are. The Greeks accepted this. Gods had enemies. Heroes had critics. Respect from everyone was never the goal. Respect from the right people, the ones who matter, was enough. The Greeks also understood that respect is inseparable from fate. Not destiny in the modern, mystical sense, but fate is consequence. Every action created a ripple. Every pattern of behavior formed an expectation. Introverts often underestimate how closely people watch them precisely because they are quiet. Loud people are dismissed as background noise. Quiet people are studied. This is why, in Greek courts and assemblies, silence was often interpreted as intent. When the quiet man finally spoke, it was assumed he had thought through every angle. This brings us to one of the most powerful introverted tools in Greek mythology, foresight. Not prophecy, but anticipation. The ability to see where things are heading before others do. This was the domain of those who observed instead of reacted. Cassandra had prophecy but lacked restraint. Tiresias had prophecy and restraint, and was respected even by kings. The difference was not knowledge. It was how that knowledge was carried. Tiresias spoke only when necessary. He did not plead to be believed. He delivered truth and accepted the consequences. That emotional detachment is critical. When you attach your self-worth to whether others accept your words, you give away power. The Greeks believed true wisdom was indifferent to applause. Introverts must internalize this. Speak because it is correct, not because it will be welcomed. Another core principle in commanding respect is inevitability. People respect what they cannot avoid. Not in a threatening way, but in a structural way. Hades was inevitable. Winter under Demeter's grief was inevitable. Time under Chronos was inevitable. These forces did not rush. They arrived when the moment was right. Introverts who move steadily toward their goals without announcing every step develop this same aura. Others begin to sense that your progress does not depend on permission. In Greek myths, those who sought permission were weak. Those who acted within their domain were respected. Athena did not ask Ares to be wiser. She outmaneuvered him. Artemis did not argue about her autonomy. She enforced it. Introverts must stop explaining their nature. You do not need to justify quietness. You demonstrate its effectiveness. There is also a darker truth the Greeks accepted without apology. Fear and respect often overlap. Not terror, but uncertainty. People are cautious around what they cannot predict. An introvert who is emotionally controlled, observant, and selective with words becomes unpredictable in a strategic way. Not because they are chaotic, but because their reactions are not automatic. Automatic people are easy to manipulate. Deliberate people are not. This is why in Greek warfare, the strategist outranked the berserker. Ares represented chaos. Athena represented control. Athena was respected. Ares was used. Introverts must understand this distinction. If you are reactive, you will be used. If you are controlled, you will be consulted. Consultation is a sign of respect. When people begin to ask for your opinion without you offering it, you have crossed a threshold. That threshold is reached by consistency, restraint, and clarity over time. Not by trying harder to be noticed. The Greeks also valued dignity. Dignity was the ability to maintain self-respect under pressure. In tragedies, characters lose respect the moment they beg excessively, rage uncontrollably, or collapse publicly. Introverts often preserve dignity naturally because they process internally. Protect this trait. Do not let a loud culture shame you into public emotional leakage. Dignity commands respect even from enemies. Notice how many Greek heroes suffered quietly. They grieved, but they did not collapse. They endured humiliation without losing composure. Composure is not suppression, it is governance. You govern your inner world so it does not govern you. This is the highest form of power the Greeks recognized. Respect also grows from selective association. Greek gods were careful about whom they aligned with. Athena favored Odysseus, not because he was the strongest, but because he was the most compatible with her nature. Introverts should do the same. Align with those who understand silence, not those who exploit it. The people you tolerate shape how others perceive you. If you allow disrespect in private, you invite it in public. Another critical element is ritual. The Greeks structured life around ritual because ritual created meaning without explanation. Introverts thrive in ritual because it removes the need for constant verbal negotiation. Develop your own rituals. How you enter a room. How you respond to challenges. How you say no. Consistent ritualized behavior signals stability. Stability earns trust. Trust earns respect. Do not confuse this with rigidity. Greek gods adapted when necessary. But adaptation was intentional, not reactive. Introverts should practice flexibility without chaos. You can change course without announcing uncertainty. Quiet adjustments preserve authority. One of the most misunderstood Greek virtues is sophrosin, moderation, balance, self-control. This was the ideal state of being. Excess in any direction was condemned. Introverts already lean toward moderation. The danger is tipping into passivity. Sophrosin is not passivity. It is controlled intensity. When the moment calls for force, force is applied fully. When the moment calls for silence, silence is complete. This controlled intensity is what makes introverted respect so durable. It does not burn bright and fade. It accumulates. People may not praise you openly, but they will defer to you subconsciously. They will check your reaction before deciding how serious a situation is. That is real influence. The Greeks believed leadership was revealed in crisis. Noise increases in crisis. Panic multiplies. The introvert who remains calm becomes a reference point. Others orbit that calm. This is why, historically, quiet leaders often rise during instability. They are not overwhelmed by internal noise, so external noise does not control them. As an introvert, you must stop measuring your effectiveness by how often you speak. Measure it by how people respond when you do. Measure it by whether your absence is noticed. Measure it by whether your boundaries are respected without constant reinforcement. Greek mythology is not ancient fantasy. It is ancient psychology encoded in story. It understood human behavior long before modern terms existed. And it teaches one lesson again and again: those who master themselves never need to shout for control. Control is felt. Respect follows. The Greeks also understood something modern society resists admitting: respect is not granted to potential. It is granted to demonstrated reality. Many introverts live rich inner lives, but inner life alone does not command respect. It must translate into outcomes. In mythology, gods were respected not for what they intended to do, but for what they had already done. Zeus was king because he overthrew the Titans. Athena was trusted because her strategies worked. Hades was feared because no soul escaped him. Reputation followed action, not intention. For the introvert, this means one thing above all else: let your work speak before you do. Do not announce plans. Do not pre-explain your thinking. Deliver results quietly. The Greeks believed announcing victories before they happened invited divine punishment. Hubris always preceded downfall. Quiet execution, followed by visible consequence, created respect that could not be argued away. This is why Odysseus survived where louder heroes failed. He did not broadcast his cleverness. He used it. The Trojan horse was not accompanied by speeches. It was accompanied by silence and patience. The enemy underestimated what they could not hear. Underestimation is one of the greatest advantages an introvert can possess, if they do not rush to correct it. Many introverts sabotage themselves by trying to prove they are not weak. In Greek mythology, the need to prove strength was itself considered weakness. True power assumed itself. It did not seek validation. When you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Ask whether explanation will increase clarity or reduce mystery. Mystery, when paired with competence, creates respect. Mystery alone is not enough. The Greeks warned against empty obscurity. Oracles were mysterious, but they were accurate. When mystery lacked substance, it was dismissed as trickery. This is why your silence must be supported by preparation. When you do speak, your words must land. They must clarify, not confuse. Precision earns respect faster than eloquence. Precision was sacred to Apollo. As god of music and prophecy, he represented harmony and order. Music, in Greek philosophy, was not entertainment, it was mathematics made audible. Every note had structure. Introverts who speak precisely create the same effect. Their words feel measured, intentional. People sense order behind them. Order calms groups. Calm groups follow. Respect also emerges from moral consistency. Greek heroes were judged not only by success, but by adherence to a personal code. When a hero violated their own code, respect collapsed even if they won. For introverts, having a clear internal code is natural. The danger is failing to enforce it externally. You must act in alignment with your values even when it costs you socially. Especially then, sacrifice signals seriousness. Seriousness commands respect. Think of Antigone. She did not shout. She did not rally crowds. She acted according to her conscience and accepted the consequences without theatrics. Even her enemies respected her resolve. The Greeks admired this quiet defiance. It was not rebellion for attention, but principle without negotiation. Negotiation itself is another domain where introverts quietly dominate. The Greeks believed the man who spoke less in negotiation gained more. Every word reveals leverage. Silence conceals it. When you are comfortable with pauses, others rush to fill them, often with concessions. This is not manipulation, it is composure. Composure shifts power. Another truth Greek mythology makes uncomfortable is this: respect cannot coexist with neediness. Neediness repels respect instantly. Gods who needed worship were mocked. Mortals who begged were pitied, not respected. Introverts sometimes slip into neediness not for attention, but for acceptance. They want reassurance that their quietness is allowed. It is allowed only when you allow it yourself. Self-acceptance precedes external respect. When you treat your nature as something to be apologized for, others follow your lead. When you treat it as a strength, they adjust. Greek gods never apologized for what they were. They punished those who demanded they change. Punishment in mythology was not cruelty, it was correction. Boundaries enforced reality. In your life, correction does not mean anger. It means consequence. If someone interrupts you repeatedly, stop engaging. If someone disrespects your time, reduce access. Do not lecture. Do not explain endlessly. Adjust behavior. Greeks believed behavior taught better than words. One of the most powerful signals of respect is when people change their behavior around you without being told. That happens when your reactions are consistent. Inconsistent reactions invite testing. Consistency ends it. Introverts often struggle with confrontation. Greek mythology offers a reframing. Confrontation is not volume, it is clarity. Athena confronted Ares not by yelling, but by exposing his recklessness. You can confront quietly by stating facts and then disengaging. Calm confrontation unnerves more than aggression because it denies emotional escalation. Escalation benefits the loud. De-escalation benefits the controlled. Respect flows toward the controlled. Another element the Greeks understood deeply was legacy. They lived with the awareness that actions outlive the actor. Introverts should think in terms of legacy within their environments. What pattern do you leave behind when you exit a room, a project, a relationship? Chaos or order? Relief or tension? People remember patterns more than moments. If your presence consistently brings clarity, resolution, or stability, respect accumulates even if no one praises you directly. Greek heroes were often honored after death. Respect is not always immediate. That does not make it unreal. The Greeks also recognized the power of restraint in victory. Those who gloated lost respect. Those who accepted victory quietly gained it. Introverts should practice quiet confidence. When you succeed, acknowledge it without excess. Gratitude without self-minimization. Pride without performance. Self-minimization is as damaging as arrogance. The Greeks despised false humility. Know your worth. Stand by it silently. Silence, in Greek thought, was not absence. It was containment. Like a drawn bow. Potential energy. People feel potential energy. They sense when someone could speak, but chooses not to. That choice implies control. And control, more than charisma, more than dominance, more than popularity, is the foundation of respect. The Greeks also understood that authority is felt most strongly when it does not ask for recognition. The moment authority seeks applause, it weakens itself. This is why introverts who chase acknowledgement undermine their own power without realizing it. In mythology, the gods who demanded worship were never the most respected. The gods who simply were, unmoved, unbothered, became central forces in the lives of mortals whether those mortals acknowledge them or not. This is the quiet paradox of respect. It grows faster when you stop looking directly at it. When you focus instead on alignment, between thought, action, and restraint, respect follows as a byproduct. Greek thinkers believed the universe rewarded harmony. When your inner world and outer behavior match, you create harmony. Others sense this even if they cannot explain it. Introverts often feel pressure to assert themselves. But assertion without gravity becomes noise. Gravity is built through depth. Depth takes time. The Greeks admired age not for wrinkles, but for accumulated judgment. Judgment was refined through silence and observation. Young heroes rushed. Wise ones waited. Introverts are naturally positioned to become wise early if they stop apologizing for their pace. Consider again Odysseus returning to Ithaca. He does not announce himself. He does not reveal his identity to reclaim his throne immediately. He watches. He listens. He tests loyalty. Only when every piece is in place does he act. And when he does, it is decisive and final. This is not cowardice. This is dominance through patience. The Greeks saw this as the highest form of intelligence. Many introverts reveal themselves too early: opinions, emotions, plans. Once revealed, they can be attacked, misunderstood, or dismissed. Greek mythology teaches concealment is wisdom. Not dishonesty, but discretion. You are not required to show your entire mind to earn respect. In fact, showing too much reduces it. The Greeks believed in masks, not as deception, but as boundary. Actors wore masks to convey essence without exposing identity. Introverts must learn to use masks socially. Professionalism is a mask. Calmness is a mask. Neutrality is a mask. These masks protect your inner world while allowing you to function with authority. Protection is power. Power also comes from selectivity. The Greeks did not treat every opinion as equal. Elders spoke last. Gods spoke rarely. Introverts should practice selective engagement. Not every comment deserves response. Not every provocation deserves reaction. When you choose what you ignore, you signal hierarchy. People subconsciously register this. Hierarchy is uncomfortable to discuss in modern terms, but the Greeks were honest about it. Every space had order. Those who did not know their place disrupted harmony. Respect was accorded to those who maintained order without enforcing it aggressively. Introverts often maintain order simply by their presence. When they stop interrupting that presence with nervous explanations, others align around them naturally. There is also the matter of speech quality. Greek rhetoric valued clarity over flourish. The most respected speeches were short, structured, and grounded in logic. Introverts who speak slowly, clearly, and without excess emotion are often perceived as more intelligent, even when their content is identical to louder speakers. Perception matters. The Greeks understood this deeply. Perception, however, must be supported by integrity. Without integrity, silence becomes emptiness. Integrity means your private behavior matches your public restraint. Greek myths punished hypocrisy severely. Gods who violated their own laws lost respect, even among other gods. Introverts must guard their integrity fiercely. Quiet hypocrisy is still hypocrisy. Another often overlooked source of respect is self-sufficiency. The Greeks admired figures who did not depend excessively on others. Dependency created obligation. Obligation reduced dignity. Introverts, by nature, often rely less on external stimulation. This is a strength. When others sense that you are not dependent on them for validation, entertainment, or emotional regulation, they treat you differently. Independence creates respect. This does not mean isolation. Greek heroes formed alliances. But alliances were strategic, not desperate. Introverts should choose connections carefully. Too many shallow connections dilute presence. Few deep connections concentrate it. Concentration creates intensity. Intensity creates respect. The Greeks also believed that the most dangerous person in a room was the one who could walk away. Detachment was not indifference, it was freedom. If you can leave without emotional collapse, you are not easily controlled. People sense this. Respect follows freedom. Introverts often struggle with detachment because they invest deeply. The lesson is not to invest less, but to invest privately. Public attachment invites leverage. Private commitment preserves strength. Greek gods loved, but rarely publicly begged. Begging was mortal behavior. Respect also increases when you become associated with resolution. People come to you when things need to be settled, clarified, or decided. This happens when you demonstrate fairness, consistency, and calm judgment over time. Introverts excel here because they consider multiple angles before speaking. When others notice this pattern, they defer instinctively. Deferral is respect in action. When a group pauses to see how you will react, you have influence. You do not need to seize it. Let it come to you. Greek leaders did not rush to the center. The center formed around them. Another subtle but powerful principle is emotional economy. The Greeks believed emotions should be expressed proportionally. Excess emotion signaled lack of discipline. Introverts tend to experience emotion deeply but express it minimally. This is not repression, it is refinement. Refinement is respected. Refinement also applies to anger. Controlled anger was seen as righteous. Uncontrolled anger was seen as barbaric. When you express displeasure calmly and clearly, people take it seriously. When you explode, they wait for the storm to pass. Respect belongs to the calm. What most people never realize is that respect shifts the moment others believe you do not need them. This belief is subtle, almost invisible, but in Greek mythology it defined the difference between gods and mortals. Mortals needed. Gods chose. The introvert who commands respect moves from needing approval to choosing engagement. That shift alone changes how every interaction unfolds. In Greek councils, the person who needed agreement argued. The person who did not need agreement stated their position and waited. Waiting was power. Silence after speaking was power. Introverts instinctively understand this but often override it out of social anxiety. The Greeks would have seen that anxiety not as weakness of character, but as a failure to trust one's own weight. Weight is a recurring concept. In Greek thought, words had weight, decisions had weight, presence had weight. A man with weight could sit quietly and still dominate the space. An introvert builds weight not by asserting dominance, but by accumulating credibility. Credibility is built when your words align with outcomes again and again. One alignment is coincidence. Repeated alignment is authority. Authority is why even Zeus listened to certain figures. He did not listen to everyone. He listened to those whose insight had proven itself. Respect is selective. The introvert must become selective as well, selective with time, selective with speech, selective with emotional investment. Selection communicates value. Greek mythology also reveals something uncomfortable. People test quiet individuals more than loud ones. Silence invites projection. Some will assume weakness. Others will assume depth. The difference lies in how you respond to testing. If you rush to correct assumptions, you confirm insecurity. If you remain composed and consistent, assumptions correct themselves over time. In myth, heroes were tested constantly. Odysseus was mocked, underestimated, insulted. He did not respond emotionally. He stored information. He waited. Then he acted in a way that ended the testing permanently. Respect often comes after the final test, not the first response. Introverts often fail tests by overreacting early. They explain, defend, justify. Greek heroes rarely defended themselves verbally. They demonstrated. Demonstration ends debate. Words prolong it. Another deeply Greek idea is that respect is earned vertically, not horizontally. You do not earn respect by competing at the same emotional level as others. You earn it by operating from a higher level of control. When others gossip, you remain neutral. When others complain, you observe. When others panic, you slow down. Vertical separation is felt immediately, even if no one names it. The Greeks believed the gods lived above not just physically, but psychologically. They were removed from petty cycles. This removal is available to introverts if they stop engaging in every emotional invitation. Not every feeling needs participation. Detachment is not coldness. It is altitude. Altitude changes perspective. From above, patterns become visible. Introverts naturally notice patterns. This is one of their greatest strengths. Greek strategists relied on pattern recognition more than brute force. Battles were won before they were fought. Conversations can be won the same way. When you see patterns, you do not react to moments. Reacting to moments is exhausting. Responding to patterns is efficient. Efficiency commands respect because it signals intelligence. Intelligence, in Greek culture, was more admired than passion. Passion was unpredictable. Intelligence was reliable. Another critical lesson from Greek mythology is the power of delayed response. Delayed response signals confidence. Immediate response signals urgency. Urgency implies dependence. When you pause before responding, you communicate that you are not pressured. Pressure belongs to those who lack leverage. Leverage comes from options. Greek gods always had options. Mortals had few. Introverts increase leverage by not emotionally committing too early. Emotional commitment narrows options. Emotional neutrality preserves them. This does not mean indifference. It means timing. Timing was sacred to the Greeks. The concept of kairos, the right moment, was considered more important than speed. Acting too early was as foolish as acting too late. Introverts excel at waiting for kairos if they trust their instincts. When you speak at the right moment, even a few words can outweigh hours of noise. This is why short, calm statements often dominate long arguments. Athena did not out-talk her opponents. She reframed the situation. Reframing is power. Introverts are natural reframers because they see multiple angles. Use this skill deliberately. Instead of reacting emotionally, shift the frame of the discussion. People respect those who control frames. Control of frame is invisible leadership. People may not realize why they defer, but they do. Greek leaders often ruled without constant commands. The structure itself enforced obedience. Introverts should aim to become structural, reliable, stable, predictable in values, unpredictable in action. Unpredictability in action does not mean chaos. It means you do not telegraph every move. The Greeks punished those who boasted before acting. Boasting removed surprise. Surprise wins conflicts. Quiet preparation beats loud intention. Respect also grows when people associate you with fairness. Greek judges were respected when they were impartial. Introverts tend to listen to all sides before deciding. This trait builds credibility. When you finally give an opinion, it carries weight because people know you considered everything. Consider how often people speak to be seen rather than to be accurate. Accuracy was sacred in Greek thought. Truth delivered calmly was more respected than truth delivered emotionally. When you focus on accuracy over performance, people sense integrity. Integrity also means consistency under pressure. Many people appear confident when things go well. Few remain composed when challenged. Greek heroes were defined by how they behaved when cornered. Introverts, accustomed to internal pressure, often perform better under stress if they do not panic socially. Social panic is the enemy of respect. It shows in rushed speech, nervous laughter, excessive agreement. These behaviors signal uncertainty. Uncertainty invites dominance. Calm resistance, even silent resistance, flips the dynamic. Resistance does not require confrontation. It requires firmness. Firmness can be expressed quietly. A simple refusal, delivered calmly and without apology, often commands more respect than a long explanation. Greek gods rarely explained refusals. They simply enforced them. Enforcement teaches faster than argument. When your boundaries are real, people learn. When they are negotiable, people test. Introverts must learn that kindness without firmness becomes permission for disrespect. Greek mythology never separated kindness from strength. The gods could be generous, but they were never weak. Introverts often have deep empathy. Empathy must be balanced with self-respect. Self-respect must be visible through action. Visibility does not mean volume. It means consequence. When someone crosses a line and nothing happens, the line disappears. When something happens quietly and consistently, respect solidifies. Another misunderstood Greek virtue is patience. Patience was not waiting passively. It was active restraint. A predator waits patiently. A strategist waits patiently. Waiting is not inaction, it is preparation. Introverts are often preparing while others are performing. Performance gets attention. Preparation gets results. Results get respect. The Greeks also understood that perception is often stronger than reality. A hero's reputation often preceded him, shaping how others behaved even before any action was taken. Introverts can harness the same principle. You may act quietly, but if your presence signals consistency, intelligence, and composure, others adjust to you as though your authority were already established. This is why ancient generals often gained obedience without raising their voices. They had cultivated a predictable aura of competence. Consider Odysseus again. Before he revealed himself to the suitors in his own hall, he observed. He tested. He remained in disguise, silent, unnoticed. But the people around him underestimated him at their peril. When he acted, the consequences were absolute. His quiet patience created authority long before the confrontation. Introverts who master strategic observation achieve the same effect. People defer to them not because they demand it, but because ignoring them would be costly. Timing remains crucial. Greek myths emphasize kairos, the opportune moment, is more powerful than mere speed or strength. Speaking too soon or acting impulsively often leads to ruin. Speaking at the right moment consolidates power effortlessly. Introverts, accustomed to thinking before acting, naturally operate in alignment with kairos. By trusting this instinct, your words and actions carry weight far beyond their volume. Another critical principle is selective visibility. Many Greek gods and heroes exercised power from the shadows. Hades ruled the underworld unseen. Athena advised mortals without needing to broadcast her presence. Introverts can emulate this by acting effectively without performing constantly. Your impact can be subtle, but the results are undeniable. People notice outcomes before the method. Subtlety creates mystique, and mystique breeds respect. Respect also stems from emotional composure. The Greeks admired those who could endure suffering, insult, or danger without losing control. Heracles faced impossible labors, Odysseus faced relentless obstacles, yet they persisted with purpose. For introverts, emotional discipline is a natural strength. By remaining composed while others escalate, you signal stability. People respect stability because it promises predictability and reliability in chaotic environments. Composure extends to communication. Speak when your contribution matters. Avoid over-explaining, over-justifying, or overreacting. Precision is more respected than verbosity. Athena's guidance was often distilled into a single sentence, yet it shaped entire battles. Apollo's oracles were concise, yet their influence was profound. When introverts speak with measured intention, the silence around them amplifies the impact of their words. Boundaries are another domain where Greek mythology teaches respect. Artemis enforced her autonomy without negotiation. Hades guarded his domain without public announcement. Introverts gain authority by establishing and maintaining personal boundaries firmly and consistently. Enforced boundaries communicate value. People naturally respect limits that are non-negotiable yet fair. Observation is power. Greek strategists relied on intelligence gathering, not blind aggression. Odysseus observed the Cyclops' behavior, Achilles watched the battlefield, and Athena understood both mortal and divine motivations. Introverts, naturally inclined to observe before acting, can use this principle to command respect. By understanding the dynamics of a situation thoroughly, you act decisively while others flounder. Observation creates leverage, and leverage creates authority. The Greeks also emphasized that respect is cumulative. It is earned gradually through repeated demonstration of competence, restraint, and moral clarity. One act of brilliance or fairness may go unnoticed, but consistent patterns form a reputation. Introverts should view every interaction as a deposit in this intangible account. Consistency matters more than drama, and small, deliberate actions accumulate weight over time. Another crucial element is fairness. Greek judges and leaders who were impartial gained enduring respect. Partiality or favoritism eroded authority quickly. Introverts who listen carefully, consider perspectives, and act impartially signal reliability. People defer to those they trust to make equitable decisions. The Greeks also valued controlled assertiveness. Athena did not shout, she refrained and guided. Zeus did not argue incessantly, he ruled decisively when needed. Introverts can emulate this by asserting themselves firmly yet calmly. Confidence paired with calmness signals mastery, not aggression. Patience is an underrated tool. Greek heroes endured trials for years, knowing that victory required timing, preparation, and endurance. Introverts often excel at patience. Waiting does not mean passivity, it is strategic positioning. When the right moment comes, action becomes undeniable and respected precisely because it was anticipated yet controlled. Finally, the Greeks recognized the inevitability principle. Some forces are unavoidable: Hades' realm, the tide of war, the consequences of fate. Introverts can embody inevitability by building competence, composure, and influence steadily. When people sense that your intervention is decisive and your judgment reliable, they adjust behavior preemptively. They respect what they cannot avoid. By combining composure, strategic silence, selective engagement, consistency, fairness, patience, and inevitability, introverts embody principles the Greeks elevated as divine. You do not need to be loud, flamboyant, or forceful. Respect emerges organically when your presence, actions, and speech align with competence and self-mastery. Greek mythology teaches us that quiet authority, when exercised with intention, is often more enduring than noisy dominance. This is the introvert's path to commanding respect. Observe, wait, act decisively, speak rarely but meaningfully, enforce boundaries, maintain composure, and let your results and consistency do the talking. Like the gods and heroes of mythology, you wield power not by volume, but by invisible weight. When mastered, the quiet presence becomes irresistible, undeniable, and deeply respected by all who witness it. The Greeks repeatedly showed that the most respected figures were not always the strongest or the loudest. They were the most deliberate, the most calculated, the ones whose presence carried consequence. Consider Odysseus one final time. He returned to Ithaca after 20 years, not through force of volume or grand announcements, but by carefully assessing the situation, waiting for the precise moment, and executing a plan with flawless timing. His words were few, but each word carried authority. Every action carried irreversible impact. Respect followed naturally because he embodied inevitability. This is the introvert's ultimate principle: become inevitable. When people sense that your choices, boundaries, and actions cannot be ignored, and that ignoring them comes at a cost, they defer. They listen. They adjust. They respect. The Greeks called this a kind of divine gravitas, an aura of presence that transcended physical strength or loud proclamation. As an introvert, you already possess the internal architecture for this gravitas: introspection, observation, patience, and control. Your task is to structure them outwardly. Start with presence. Presence is not announced, it is felt. In mythology, gods often entered scenes silently, yet the very air shifted. Others noticed tension, uncertainty, or anticipation before a word was spoken. Introverts cultivate presence through posture, composure, and controlled reactions. Move deliberately. Speak deliberately. React only when necessary. Let your influence radiate through the weight of your attention, not the volume of your voice. Next, cultivate authority through consistency. Greek heroes and gods demonstrated their value repeatedly. Athena did not simply advise once, her guidance consistently led to victory. Hades did not reveal his power casually, his dominion was constant, unyielding, and silently acknowledged. Similarly, introverts earn respect by aligning words and actions consistently over time. When people learn that your reactions are measured, your judgment reliable, and your standards uncompromising, respect accrues naturally. Boundaries amplify authority. Artemis' independence was absolute, Hades' domain inviolable. They did not negotiate respect, they enforced it. Introverts should apply the same principle. Make your limits clear, enforce them calmly, and do not over-explain. Each boundary you maintain reinforces your presence as someone whose respect is earned, not given. Composure is equally essential. Greek mythology repeatedly rewards those who endure chaos without yielding to panic. Heracles faced impossible labors. Odysseus faced relentless trials. Athena advised in the midst of war. Composure in adversity signals control. Introverts often have a natural advantage here. Their internal processing allows them to evaluate threats, opportunities, and social dynamics calmly. By cultivating unshakable calm, you create an aura of authority that others instinctively follow. Another cornerstone is selective speech. The Greeks revered brevity and precision. A well-timed oracle could redirect cities, a single piece of advice could alter wars. Speaking only when your words carry value magnifies their impact. Over-talking dilutes influence, under-talking at the wrong time creates misunderstanding. Learn to speak with intention, clarity, and certainty. Let your voice be a tool, not a filler. Observation transforms influence into foresight. Greek heroes and strategists relied on seeing patterns before others did. Odysseus assessed his enemies and allies meticulously. Athena anticipated outcomes. Introverts should harness their natural attentiveness to evaluate social dynamics, predict consequences, and act in ways others cannot anticipate. Being one step ahead commands respect silently, without the need for declaration. Now, combine these principles into action. Strategic action is decisive, calibrated, and proportional. Greek mythology shows us that respect grows not through incessant movement, but through meaningful, irreversible action. When you act decisively at the right moment, others cannot ignore the consequences. Your silence amplifies your impact. Your presence enforces attention. Your consistency creates trust. Your boundaries enforce dignity. Your composure communicates stability. Your words carry weight. Your observation guides precision. And your timing ensures effectiveness. Finally, internalize inevitability. The Greeks revered inevitability. Hades' reign, Kronos' passage of time, Odysseus' triumphs. Introverts become inevitable when their skills, presence, and patterns are so reliable that people anticipate the effect of their actions even before they occur. Inevitable individuals do not chase respect. Respect arrives automatically because the world recognizes the cost of ignoring them. In practice, this means: move deliberately, avoid unnecessary motion or speech. Let your entrance and actions signal purpose. Speak selectively. When you speak, make every word carry clarity, insight, or resolution. Observe strategically. Understand patterns before acting. Anticipate reactions, conflicts, and opportunities. Enforce boundaries. Calm, consistent, and uncompromising when necessary. Act decisively. Wait for kairos, the right moment, and act with certainty and precision. Maintain composure. Let internal control radiate outward. Never reveal panic or indecision. Leverage scarcity. Your attention, time, and energy are valuable. People instinctively respect scarcity paired with reliability. Build a legacy of reliability. Your reputation compounds over time. Consistency creates enduring influence. By integrating these principles, introverts transform from overlooked observers into figures of quiet dominance. You do not need to be loud, flamboyant, or aggressive. You do not need to demand recognition. You do not need to perform charisma. Like the Greek gods and heroes, you earn respect through mastery of self, strategic restraint, and decisive action. And here lies the final lesson: true respect is not declared, it is reflected. It is the pause in conversation when you enter a room. It is the way others consult you silently before acting. It is the deference that forms naturally around presence, consistency, and inevitability. The Greeks understood this. And now, so can you. By embodying these ancient principles, you command respect without compromise, without performance, and without sacrificing your introverted nature. Your quiet authority becomes not only felt but undeniable, proving that in a world obsessed with noise, the softest voices often wield the greatest power.